So, like I was just saying, I left this up here for a reason, so we normally go around the room and we will. But I want to share this story as we get going into the lead generation system. Uh, of Ignite, the next 5 weeks, this week and the next 4, I should say, will be all about lead generation. So this is kind of a convoluted story, so if you get confused at any point, just stop me, but this is just why we don't, one, ever treat clients rudely. Or two, we never assume an agent's just being a bad agent. So I have a listing up on the north side of Fort Wayne. Took an offer, excuse me, back in late November, early December. First rate contingent, lady has to sell a house down in Florida. Get the offer, we get accepted, it's like great. And the agent that wrote the offer had all this, he's like, in this neighborhood, we're normally 45 days and, under contract down there, so we're asking for 60 days, like, great.
45 days.
No, like where they, like their average days on market in that area of Sarasota was like 45 days. So they asked for 60 days and, he did a great job justifying it. So from that point forward though, he was like impossible to get hold of. Like, what's the up? You're driving me nuts here, man. Like, let's go. So Friday, February 2nd, this past Friday, was the end of our contingency period. So last Monday, I followed up with him and he sent me this quick note after about 48 hours. Finally responded. Hey, she's looking at getting a HELOC, home equity line of credit, because we haven't sold her house yet. So she can just move to Fort Wayne and then we can worry about selling the house. Like 2 days after that, I get a call from one of our agents. She's like, got an awkward situation. All right, shoot. Somebody I used to coach, so she felt comfortable calling me. Well, come to find out, at some point in the last few months, this lady got in her CRA and they'd been talking. So this client that's attached to an agent at a different brokerage that's under contract with me called her last Wednesday. I think I made a mistake, wrote an offer on the wrong house. It might be too small, blah, blah, blah. She's like, wait, you bought a house? She's like, yeah, well, so-and-so over at Remix. It's like, well, I can't provide you any advice, on this particular deal, because I'm not the agent. You need to reach out to your agent. Well, I can't get a hold. So she was talking, and she'd been talking to her why this lady hadn't told her that she bought a house. It's beyond me. Well, come to find out, that particular agent has some pretty serious medical stuff. And he's been in and out of the hospital a lot.
The one in Fort.
The one here, the one that wrote the offer in Indiana on my listing, the one that nobody could get a hold of. Seek first understanding, because I was getting so agitated with this client or with this agent. Yeah, freaking respond. So that's why, like, as much as we want to get, this dude's like trying to stay alive, and I'm like, I want to get this deal to the finish. It was just a very eye-opening thing. You don't know what people are going through. That's why I love that that's on the wall. And that's part of the reason I wanted to share this story. And then two, this lady felt very connected with our agent here, that she felt comfortable enough calling her to ask questions about a deal she had nothing to do with, her. Our agent had nothing to do with. Well, now the agent has all the medical issues, is fine, let's just take it over. He's like, I can't provide this service that I need. Now, side said, why that brokerage is not offering to give him a backup agent and they haven't yet, knowing that he's got all those things, beyond me. But the fact is just like, I know you guys will take great care of her, you guys go, so we took over the whole purchase agreement.
So did you get both sides or was this other gal?
It's not my buyer, somebody in our brokerage here at KW took it over, so that's, Frankie's sitting there. So she never gave up on him, never said, get out of here. Treated her with respect, still provided her as much guidance as she could. And that's what led to this whole thing. Because Friday at midnight, going into Saturday, the offer with the other agent was that it was over.
So how did you ultimately find out the agent was very ill?
He finally got back to me. He's like, I just got out of hospital again. And it was the second time he said that. I was like, what is going on? He told me, he filled me in a little bit of what's going on. And for me, I mean, I've been thinking, I'm actually gonna send them a card today from the team I'm on. And I might see it, because Aaron knows them and hopefully he knows them. Just send them a card, again, it was just a perspective giver for me. That, yeah, I'm like worried about getting my clients to the table, getting them their money, and this dude's literally like trying to save them. You know, it's pretty serious medical stuff. It was just a very good perspective. Sometimes we need to get checked with. So we're gonna send them a card, just not anything with KW, just like you just, if there's anything you ever need from us, you know, just let us know. We're thinking of you, praying for you, that kind of stuff. So. But then with the agent that took it over, it's like, she's trying to get caught up to speed. She's just getting kind of tossed to the wolves of like, what's going on in Florida? Who's the agent down in Florida? Like, what are we doing here? So we came up with all these options, and this is how I have to think through things. I have to have a piece of paper nearby at all times with this whiteboard. So we're literally like writing down pros and cons. Don't be afraid to take it to yourself. Now it's even writing like, here's the least risky, here's the most risky. But this lady's trying to get here. She's elderly, wants to be near her family, so she needs some medical help and things like that, and wants to be close to family to take care of things. And, you know, we're working through what's the best bet for her, and what's the best bet for ourselves. But, you know, just that ultimate reminder: never give up on a lead. Always treat leads with respect if they're with somebody else. You never know if they're going to be unhappy, and where that conversation could lead. And then always seek first to understand. As much as I just wanted to rip, I'm glad I didn't rip into the stage. I felt horrible. You know what I mean? As much as I wanted to, trying to find out he's got these things going on, it's like, I'm glad we had this conversation. And he's getting the help he needs, and all we can do is hope and pray that he's gonna be all right. So, one of our agents ended up taking the deal over. So the agent at the other brokerage that was representing the buyer is not doing well physically. And that's why I couldn't get a hold of him. He was just driving nuts. So Friday going into Saturday, their deal just automatically died because the contingency period ran over. So like 10:30 Friday night, we signed a new deal so that there's no, because again, time is a deal killer we talked about, right? So if we let her wait till the next morning, she may decide that I don't want the house. So like at 10:30 that night, we signed a new purchase agreement, so there's never any lapse between the two purchase agreements.
So you're listening, since it's like so long, 60 days, you said? So the people that actually owns the house, they have said, never mind.
Correct, and that's, we've been talking a ton the past handful of days, and we came up with two options. Because it's, you guys remember what first right contingency is? Like, so essentially, since you haven't sold a house, like if we get non-contingent offer, we can bump you out of it. So my people are like, okay, if we decide to rent to her, which is one of the options you see on the board. She moves in, we get an offer, and it bumps her out of the way because she can't move her contingency. Do we want to be the people that go to her and be like, you just moved in, now you gotta move out? So they're like, we don't want to be that guy. So we came up with an option for that. And I think the option we're gonna go with is this one, the home equity line of credit. So she's actually talking to somebody that was connected.
So she'll get a line of credit, essentially.
Because she owns her house in Florida, free and clear, so she'll just pull the money there, buy the house cash, sell the house in Florida, then pay the loan off.
So then, just out of curiosity, so she's obviously living in Florida, she's living up here. So did the agent in Sarasota, find an agent, refer to this gentleman?
It doesn't seem like it because he's not at, we connected with him yesterday. I think yesterday or late Saturday, just to introduce us and just be like, hey, this person's no longer handling her purchase up here. We are, just keep us in the loop, and he didn't say anything about it. So I don't believe so. But very long story, just to say, we never give up on a lead. We always offer to be a backup. So as we get going into this whole section about lead generation, keep that in mind because you never know where a conversation will go. Oh, yeah. Yeah, the caption. Because online, sometimes it's hard to hear, like especially if the heat kicks on, a car goes by. So that helps people online.
Yeah, I think it's super for free.
Right. I can scoot you over here. But that's why we have it on there, just to try to help. All right, so any questions, any situations you guys want to dive into before we get going on today's session?
No, I don't have any questions, but I do want to bring up. I got a quick question now. It's a simple question. I really thought I had an answer to already, so. When I called about the, remember what Brittany said about. Why they didn't. Sorry, I'm just trying to question. Why, when did the buyer not get the earnest? That's simple right there. When did the buyer not get the earnest back that they put down?
The easiest answer to that is they get cold feet and walk away from the deal. If financing gets declined, if there's a true major defect that the seller doesn't want to fix, in both those situations, the buyer gets it back. They get cold feet. They want repairs that don't qualify. Again, there's a definition in the purchase agreement about what a major defect is. And again, it's a very gray area, and it could match a lot of things. So sometimes it does come down to personal opinion of what's a major defect. Okay. But if they want a tiny plumbing leak fixed, or they want to walk away before they even give the seller a chance to remedy the situation, both of those could be where the seller keeps their earnest money. But I essentially call it cold feet deposit. They get buyer's remorse. They don't want the house anymore. That's time off the market for the seller. And that's why that 1% is a good rule of thumb. I've seen so many purchase agreements, and I don't know why people accept them. Where it might be like a $400,000 purchase, and they put $500 money down. And that's, for somebody who can afford a $400,000 house, by and large, $500 isn't going to hurt. So when I'm representing a seller, I'm trying to get earnest money as high as possible, because I want it to be where it's going to hurt that seller financially if they decide to, or the buyer financially, if they walk away from that deal. I want it to sting a little bit. So that 1% is kind of a good rule of thumb in that fashion.
Just one question, what if you've ever, so like, let's say someone does lose their earnest money, does that go as like a credit on their purchase, or is it just like a credit to the people? Okay.
Yep, so if you go through the purchase, let's say you had to bring $8,000 to closing with your down payment, all this stuff, and you gave up $500 already, you'd bring $7,500. This is going to show up as a credit from your earnest money.
But what if the people lose their earnest? So I guess that's my question. Is it just like a check to the seller?
Correct. So a neutral third party usually, or a listing brokerage. So our office doesn't hold earnest money anymore, the title company does. It's usually the listing company holds it. So if in this situation, Brittany's client, or I don't know who's representing the buyer, but those buyers just decide they didn't want the house anymore. Whatever title company is holding the earnest money would get a copy of the mutual release that says this goes to the seller. They'd write a check out to the sellers and mail it to them. Because again, sellers are taking a risk, and I always equate deals to dominoes, right? Whether it's a new build, an existing house, or whatever, it doesn't matter. But at some point, Desmond's selling his house to sell it to you. Well, he's got to go buy somebody's house. Then you got to sell your house and go buy her house. You know what I mean? But if that domino falls out of place, your deals may stop and never get to Rita's deal or to Frankie's deal. So that's where it's like time off the market, even if it's a day or two, could cause a ripple effect across multiple deals. So many people get wrapped up in, I don't want the house, it's no big deal, you guys, whatever. It can be a big deal though, because it could really create a whole ripple effect across multiple families, multiple deals, multiple agents, things like that. All right. So for you folks online, if you want the guide for today, kwconnect.com, just search for Ignite, and under materials, you'll find today's student guide if you'd like. All right, so today, beginning of the whole lead generation section. So generating leads. Then next week we'll get into growing your database. Following that will be open houses, social media, and then odds and ends of capturing more leads. So we're going to start with you, the lead generator, because it all starts with you. Then get into the lead generation model and your sphere of influence. Expanding your sphere of influence. Lead gen best practices, and then recaps and ahas. A good perspective, Brandon. My fear of failure was greater than my fear of lead generation. And if you're not lead generating, where's your business coming? If you're not doing it, nobody else is doing it for you. So it's got to start with you and end with you. Talked about this in a previous session as well. Number one, nothing will get past number one. If you don't do number one, 2 through 6 won't matter. Lead generate, capture, and convert to appointments. That second part of that statement is vital. So if Derek's talking to 50 people, just having good casual conversations, but he never asks and is bold enough to ask for the appointment, they're just 50 great conversations that are going to lead probably nowhere. A lot of times our clients won't ask us for the appointment, but they're willing to say yes if we are bold enough to ask. So it rests on your shoulders to be bold enough to ask. Present to buyers and sellers and get an agreement. So listing contract, a buyer agency agreement, whatever it happens to be. Show buyers and market sellers. Write and negotiate contracts. Coordinate the sale to closing. And again, I still feel like this year that's going to be a bigger challenge as opposed to getting deals under contract, which has been the problem the last couple of years, 3 years. I think getting deals to close and keeping people from having cold feet, things like that. This is where if you're representing sellers, I would start asking for a little bit more on the earnest money side, because we could see buyers getting a little bit more cold feet. And we've seen more mutual releases in the last 6 months than probably the last 4 years combined.
What's the main reason?
I think buyers just feel like they got a little bit more control. And where, let's say in 2021, we saw buyers just not even getting inspections. Now we're seeing them get really wishy-washy by the littlest thing on that inspection report. They almost want the whole report fixed, and that's not the essence of the report. Again, there's a reason, there's a definition inside of the purchase agreement of what qualifies as a major defect. And then we've seen some people a little less than the inspection stuff. When they finally see their payment, again, they don't get their interest rate locked in until you're under contract. So we've seen some people, once their interest rate's locked in, they see what their payment's going to be, then they start second guessing. Again, even a bigger reason why you want to get that higher earnest money if you're representing sellers. See, that's no fault of your sellers that they're getting cold feet because they don't like the payment.
The mortgage calculator, and I know if it changed by a point or two, is it that maybe good to go?
For some buyers, some buyers are pushing and they want to spend every penny of that pre-approval letter. Just because you're approved to it doesn't mean you should always spend it. So this is where making sure in a good buyer consultation. So you've lead generated, you met a buyer, just because the lender says they could spend as much, don't be afraid to have the conversation what the payment would actually look like. So there's apps like that Agent One app that I've shown you guys in the past that will break down your principal, interest, taxes, insurance, and on top of here's what your down payment would be. Here's your estimated closing cost. How do you feel about these numbers? And inside of that app, if your payment comes out to, let's say, $2,200, and I'm talking to Stacy, and she's like, I really don't want to spend $2,200. I'd rather be closer to $1,800. There's a calculator in there where you can reverse engineer what that would look like at the current interest rates. So don't be afraid to have that in-depth conversation as we get leads coming in. And then manage the money. Again, all of you are individual business owners. We're your support staff. Understand what money's coming in, what money's going out, what's your profit. So it doesn't matter how much you make, it's how much do you keep. In Agent Financials last week, we dove into that.
Any questions on any 6 of these before we move on?
Is the coordinate sales, right, so the
Hmm?
question, is that harmony, that's only what we do, coordinate the sales, that what that means?
Correct. They do a majority of it. You're watching from a bird's eye view, and this is what this class is for. So no need to apologize to ask questions. The team I'm on, we have a transaction coordinator. We have basically a team admin. She writes all our contracts for us, manages the contracts to close. Basically helps us devise all our systems,
So real estate too, but should I ever?
unlicensed.
Okay.
So the way our deal is set up is she writes all our contracts, but it's on us to review them really quick. Because there's a mistake, our written agreement with her is like, if there's a mistake, something, we can't get mad at her. Because we're authorizing her to write it on our behalf. So, but what the benefit for me is, like, if I show Rita a house, she wants to write an offer, I'll essentially text my admin the showing sheet, hey, here's what she wants to offer. We've already talked, so the loop's already built. She already has all your contact information, your pre-approval. By the time I'm home, the offer's done, I can review it really quick, she sends it out for signatures, and then sends it off to the other agent. So in that time I'm driving home, it's not drive home, then do some work. It's already done for me. All right. Fears and myths. I would venture to guess all of us have at least one of these, if not all of these. Is that a fair statement? I was just talking to one of our people in coaching this morning about I don't know what to say. So if that's you, kw-training.com, agent resources, there's a link to scripts. KW Connect, there's a whole slew of scripts in there. When you guys started Ignite, if you come to script and role play, which is literally every day of the week, we cover different scripts based on what you're working on. So some pretty easy solutions there. But the big ones that I've heard time and time again, more so than that, are 1, 2, and 4. People generally get over that I don't know what to say pretty quickly once we show them where the scripts are. But 1, 2, and 4 are the ones where I see people a lot. So I think lead generation is really difficult. Can be. But you got to pick something that you're comfortable doing. And then after you get through that, push yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit. We were talking about door knocking yesterday. Is it a waste of time or not, right?
Yeah.
What was the essence of the question? I'm not trying to call you. People ask that all the time. It's like, maybe. But how do we know? You never know. So go out there, do it. But then what did we talk about yesterday?
Following up. Door knocking, send some letters, door knocking, and then leave something on the door as well. Or call, don't just door knock every one time.
Right. So any plan you come up with lead generation cannot be a one-step plan. Can't be, I'm gonna go door knock this street one time. And they never hear from me again. Lead generation needs to be consistent. There needs to be a plan of action. So what we talked about is like, all right, go door knock it today. Make a note of who didn't answer, who answered. Maybe all of them, you do a handwritten card. Send it. So the ones that did talk to you, you can address, hey, it was great talking to you, blah, blah, blah. The ones, hey, stop by your house. Sorry, I missed you, but this is why I was stopping by. Or maybe you do door hangers. You leave something on the door. Then on top of that, maybe you hit social media ads that are targeted. Again, inside a command, you can put in an address right in the middle of that area and do a 1 mile radius or 2 mile radius. And now they're seeing it. Then maybe do another handwritten card a month from now. Maybe partner with a lender that hit that area with a postcard. Help you split the money and then you door knock again.
Or I've seen like people teaming up with the lender, and I think that's a really good idea, but then it's like, what if they don't use that lender? And then they feel like they're not getting, you know what I mean? Like you're gonna go.
It's a roll of the dice. Yeah, it's a roll of the dice. You don't know.
Or I guess
Yeah,
they use the
because-
lender.
Exactly. I was just about to say that exact thing. You don't know. And this is where we gotta not worry about what could go wrong. we gotta shoot our shot. That's the essence of lead generation. That's the essence of the slide. So I'm glad you brought that up. There's nothing saying they don't call the lender first, or it just prompts them to use their current or their past agent. You know, maybe I should look into selling. Maybe they don't call you, they call that other realtor. Or they call you, but they already have a lender friend. We don't know, but we gotta shoot our shot. We gotta talk to as many people as possible to find out. Okay. And it can be difficult, especially if it's something you don't enjoy doing. So who in here, if I gave you a phone book, would be, and online answer this too, would feel comfortable just taking that phone book, 1980 style boiler room, A to Z.
Oh, I would want to, I do it, but like, I've done expires, when see, I do it, but I buy.
But there's a plan of action there. You know, they at least try to sell. I'm talking like straight phone book. You don't know anything about these people, A to Z.
Stoked about it.
Right.
I'm not afraid to talk.
And that will come through and you talking to the people. Most people are that way. There's a team that used to be here. They're not here any longer, but that was if you signed up for this team, you're dedicating to being there 4 hours a day, working through their dialer. They had a double line dialer. And if you don't know what a dialer is, if you ever get a call from a number you don't know and you hear it click over after about a second and then the person's there, they're essentially using a dialer. Your commitment. So the idea there is 4 hours a day, you're calling and you don't know who you're calling or why you're calling them. You're just trying to convert them. Then we have an agent, one of our top billing agents. She's never done that. Done billboards, joined every board and organization, volunteer organization, and sells a boatload. You need to find out what works for you and build a plan. The first agent in that team that I brought up, uber successful. Second person I brought up, uber successful. So you got to find the methodologies that connect with you. And we'll get into that here in a little bit. But lead generation can be difficult if it's a method that you don't enjoy. I don't have time to lead generate. This is the only thing you can't leverage out. Everything else you can leverage out. You can leverage out your advertising, your transaction management. If you get big enough, you can even hire a showing assistant or a buyer's agent. You have to make time for. It has to be on your schedule. We already talked about, I don't know what to say. I'm afraid of making mistakes. I'll assure you, you will make mistakes. Say the wrong thing, call a person by the wrong name because you've talked to so many people that day. It's going to happen. Just be okay with it. So I look at the lead generation part, what to say. It's like you're part of a play. So if you're a part of a play and you do a 50 show run, how many times do you think they get the script exactly right in those 50 shows? Probably not many. It varies.
I better than you.
So the church I go to, so last week I volunteered for the morning service to do coffee. Then I sat in on the second service, but they have a TV out in the lobby. Because if there's overflow or people with kids don't want to, if the baby's crying, they can still. 9 o'clock service, 11 o'clock service. The sentiment of the whole opening part of the sermon was the same. But it wasn't worded the same. He wasn't reading off a teleprompter, but the sentiment was the same. It's going to be the same thing with you. You call her, you say one thing, you call her. It's going to be a variation of that. So don't worry about making mistakes. And the other thing is with scripts, you got to be able to think on your feet. And that's going to lead to mistakes too, because how do the scripts that you print out work? They give you like the most hunky-dory, amazing situation that Derek calls Stacy, and she's obviously going to say yes because that's how the script's written. Well, that's not the real world. She might tell him some colorful 4-letter words, and he's got to be willing to, overcome that objection. Or, hey, it sounds like I caught you at a bad time. do you mind if I follow up with you? You know, tomorrow. Again, we don't know what's going on in their life, and I always bring this up, our last bold instructor, Regina. Her biggest tip in this section was you got to be able to read the room. Whether it's in person, on the phone or whatever, if you hear the person's really distracted, is it the best time to ask them to make a major life decision? Because selling a house, buying a house, that's a major life decision. If you hear a bunch of chaos, it's 5:30 at night, sounds like they're cooking dinner and the kids are screaming in the background, is this probably a time to ask for this kind? Sounds like it caught you at a bad time. Do you mind if I give you a call? Maybe tomorrow midday might be a better time. Would that work for you? Or you can tell they're at work because they're like, you know, whispering into their phone because they don't want to get in trouble. Be able to read the room. Sometimes you won't read the room correctly. Yeah, another mistake. I didn't realize. My apologies. Don't be afraid to apologize and just move on to the next thing. Any questions on these myths and fears? And if you're feeling this, have an accountability partner you can call. Feel free to call me, even if you're not coaching, feel free to call me. Let's talk through it. Hey, I want to talk to these people. I just don't really know what to say. All right, well, what's our ultimate goal here? Are we asking for the appointment, just kind of laying the groundwork? You know, we'll talk through it and kind of build a roadmap. But again, kw-training.com, agent resources. There's a whole plethora of scripts, KW Connect. And if you just Google for scripts, real estate for sale by owner scripts or whatever, there'll be some that come up there as well. Just look high and low. There's tons of resources on what to say. Practice them. Before you use them, practice. They got to be second nature. What's the biggest objection we get from people when we talk about using scripts, do you think?
How about like us or this?
People, just real estate agents, not necessarily just people in coaching, but when we tell people they need to start using scripts, what do you think their big objection is?
Sounds scripty. I don't sound salesy.
Yeah, I would say remembering them, but I think like what Ben touched on, it's not exactly the words it'll be, you know. You want to change things, so it's. Yeah, it's authentic, but has the same terms.
Yeah. Wait.
I think that's an answer.
And that's
Just sounding like everybody else, it's script, sounds like everyone's saying the exact same thing.
sound like everybody else. Very valid. Anybody online?
So for me personally, it's got to be a personal connection between people. And so for me personally, I look at that like calling through the phone books and stuff, and that's just very salesy to me. If I were to get a phone call and somebody were to say, "Hey, you want to buy windows?" You know, the odds of me going to buy windows with them are slim to none. You know what I mean? And so
100%.
in my brain, I think of that same way. Whereas for me personally, I would rather go out and have a conversation with somebody that I'm talking to in Walmart, and then make that personal connection there to see if I can convert the lead, as opposed to calling. But that's me. You were talking about that earlier. That's just kind of how I like to do it better.
Right, yeah, and that means it's gonna be something for you that you connect. And again, that's where I've seen agents do all different kind of stuff, and that's very true. If it's gonna sound salesy, you know, I look at lead generation, what problem are we solving? In this conversation, what's the ultimate? Sure, I could find something, maybe call him about windows, but it might take me 500 calls before I get to a yes. You know, like, actually, I was just thinking about it. This is why we teach lead generation the way we teach it. And you saw earlier when we went through the timeline of today, we're starting with your sphere of influence. Why do we start there whenever we talk about lead generation? It's people that know you, trust you, and want to see you succeed. Your conversion rate's so much higher. Focusing on that. Level 2, we get to open houses. Now we know these people are at least interested in real estate some way, shape, or form. Well, we don't know them, so they're quote unquote cold leads, but we at least know they're like interested in this thing. And then we start getting to social media ads, cold calling, that's like level 3. your conversion rates get much less as you go down that chain. For that exact reason, what Derek was just saying. So you gotta find what you're comfortable with. Don't be afraid to push yourself out of your comfort zone. But what you guys are saying where it sounds robotic, but the thing about just daily conversations, there's somewhat of a script. This is why you gotta practice them over and over and over. If you've ever seen a really good stand-up comedian where it seems like they're just ripping off the cuff, they're not. They're using their quote unquote script. They just got really, really, really good at it, where it sounds just like they're ad-libbing off the cuff. That's where you guys need to get to with any script you use. But it's gotta sound like you. So don't be afraid to take a script and make it you, especially if you're talking to your sphere.
Like, you got that story of something awesome happened, and you're telling this friend, and you're telling this friend, and then you're telling this friend, and then you're telling this friend. And you're really good at telling.
Exactly. You tell the story over and over. It's like a Rita called a really good friend of yours and, hi, it's Rita. Would you like to buy a house? That's not how you get it. You know what I mean? You gotta make it you. It's gotta spin like it has to feel like you, sound like you, especially with your sphere. But people have a pretty good BS meter. So if it sounds like you're reading off a list, whether it's somebody you know or not, they're gonna pick up on it pretty good. So practice, practice. That's why we have script and role play every day of the week. So, but when you think about lead generation is difficult, don't confuse that with enjoyment. We're not saying it's necessarily the most exciting thing you're gonna do in your day, but it's necessary. Get to a point where you do enjoy it because it's gotta be a vital part of your business. If you don't have time, you gotta protect it. It's not on your schedule, it does not exist. It's a bowl ball. Bowl's coming up in April. We're gonna talk about this tons and tons and tons of times. It's not on your schedule, it does not exist. You have to time block lead generation. I recommend taking it, lead generation is a block of time. Lead follow-up is another block. So lead generation, new people you've not talked to yet. Lead follow-up, people you've at least attempted to talk to or have talked to. Then you have another section of time should be deals that you're working on. And those are things you're excited to talk about. If you focus on those other things, you'll never get to lead generation. And it could be a half-hour block of time. If you got nothing going on, it could be a 3-hour block. And if you have to move it, do not delete it off your schedule, move it to another time.
So how does that, I guess just in a nutshell, I know what you do, but how does that look for you? Like say it's like 10 to noon. Are you just sending a few emails, calling people, sending a few like thank you notes, happy birthday cards?
It'll vary day by day, so I'll kind of block out the activities for different days. So like handwritten cards, I usually try to do that like as it's fresh in my mind, like I should send to somebody a card, like usually I'll have like a script in mind, so I either use a note on my phone if I don't have a card. But those I'll kind of do off the cuff, but my calls and texts, like I will just block that time out. And I usually do no more than an hour, because I just start getting on burnout a little bit. So I'll do like maybe an hour here or there throughout the day. But I can't, some people you'll hear, they'll sit down for 3 hours and go to town on it. And I just can't, my brain just gets a little too, so I need to do like a time block that works for me. Now, here's the big one that we see people, well, I have 10 to noon blocked out, and they say the only time they can see the house is 11 o'clock. Okay, if that's how it is, try as much as possible, say, hey, the house is available from 1 to 3 today. So you're not saying, hey, I'm not available. You can just say, hey, the house is available from 1 to 3, you schedule there. But if they're like 11 o'clock's it, we'll go show them the house at 11 and move your 2-hour time block to 1 to 3. So we don't want to not show a client a house, but we want to protect their time as much as possible. So my script on that is like, hey, the house is available from these times. They don't know it's you're available during those times. I just blame it on the house. They generally that works just. All right. Don't know what to say. How to get on the path of mastering my dialogue skills in this business. Again, practice, 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 practice. Afraid of making mistakes. It's nothing more than a set of tasks and skills that are well documented. And where did you fall short on the script? Where did you get? Like, hey, I need to get this a little bit tighter. Practice it. Sphere of influence. So in your participant guide, it is page. 5.4. We're gonna do a quick activity here. So if you guys wanna get your phones out. Go to your contacts and how many contacts are in your phone? And on iPhones, at least, if you scroll to the very bottom, it'll tell you. If you have a Google phone, I never use one, so I have no idea.
What are we looking for? I'm sorry.
Number of contacts in your phone.
Oh, okay.
And once you have that, multiply it by 0.081.
It doesn't say.
Are you sure it's not at the very bottom?
Oh, wow.
Very bottom, yeah.
Yeah, keep that. Yeah, there you go.
What numbers did you guys come up with when you multiply by 0.081?
Yeah, 8.1.
8.
8.1.
Sorry, what was it times?
Take the number of contacts in your phone, multiply by 0.081.
You must have a whole lot of contacts.
Oh, yeah, it was only like 100 in there.
Oh, I'm not good. 925.
Drop that down on B. Then take that same number of contacts in your database, so bottom of your contacts list. Now we're gonna multiply by 0.1.
Take that number.
The number of contacts in your phone and multiply by 0.1. What did you guys come up with? 63.4.
Proceed.
Let's see, yep,
I can, 10.
30.9.
50.9,
30.9.
30.9.
10.3.
So jot that down on C. What are you guys online coming up with for number C? If anybody's willing to share?
6.5.
All
I
right.
got 15.1.
How many? So now we're gonna add up B plus C. And then for E, if you're a more veteran agent, you know what your average commission is. Being newer, I would say you put 6,500 right there. That's a good average commission for our markets. Then you're gonna multiply whatever you got for D, multiply it by 6,500, and then that's gonna give you.
That was good.
Doesn't it? Did? So it's saying that 8.1% of the people in your contacts are looking to buy your stuff. I tried to go through my contacts and clean it up just when I was going, not that there's because there's certain people you're not gonna call and fix it.
So B is telling you exactly that there's a good percentage of your database that this year are looking to buy or sell or invest. C is telling you there's a big chunk of your database that knows somebody. Maybe it's not them, but it's somebody they know. If you multiply that by 6,500, who's willing to share the number that they came up with?
Almost 17,000, 117,000.
117,000, which is pretty good. 745, that's a there's one I've heard of.
363.
I only.
Usually it's in the hundreds, I've never heard of, you guys got a lot of people in your
I
phone.
think I did it right.
No, I'm sure you did, like up there in your database.
I
Or
have
in
a
your
lot
phone, I
in my
mean.
contact, but I'm not from here, so this is screwed, like it's not an actual.
We're gonna get to that, that is an actual number, we'll get to that.
Like, this are like from
Let me
Ohio.
mindset, that's fine, we can help people in Ohio. The idea here is this is all from your sphere, we got anywhere from 117,000 to 700 plus thousand online, if you feel like sharing what that number is, love to hear from you, but these are just people in your phone. We've not done any ads. We've not done a single open house. We've not done anything. What's that?
That I had 415,000.
Four
That's why.
hundred fifteen thousand, there you go. Almost $500,000 sitting in our phone. This gets back to, there are no bad leads in Oakland. Whether they're in Ohio or wherever. Let me ask you this, how many businesses are in your phone? Probably a few at least, right? Could be restaurants, could be contractors, could be whatever. These are people you can build relationships with. The idea is start with those closest to you. That's why this graph on the slide right here. You're right there in the middle. Start working your way out. Ventured the static career night last week, got 91% of the deals done nationwide last year were done within 1 degree of your sphere of influence. 9 out of 10 deals were somewhere very close to the middle of the circle. Nationally. I think it was week 2 of Ignite, we talked about this. Most people, and there's about 3/4 with, when you combine buyers and sellers, would do business with the first agent they talk to. Very few will do any with the second. So if you're third or fourth, then you got literally 0 shot.
Is that just a national average? Because I feel like I'm from a small community and there's a few really beloved realtors that people would remember and go to. But like, say I got to them before those people did, like, or do you think it's different
I mean,
in different markets?
It'll be different for different markets, but national average, you know, again, in a smaller town. More people are in your sphere of influence, but same thing for those other realtors. So that it's first in the door, you make your case, you make a good case, they're gonna want to use you. This is why being bold enough to ask for these appointments is so important. So your database, your sphere of influence is your database. In the command app, you can mass import every single person out of your phone into command. Go to contacts, top right corner, click the 3 dots and hit import. And everybody from your phone can be in your database. Now you gotta create a system of talking to them. Ahas, before we move on to the next section. I hope the big one is, this is not rocket science. Talk to people that you already know. There's a lot of money sitting right there. Let me ask you this, if you made 50% of what number you just came up with, would you be happy? I think all of us would say yeah, especially if you're brand new to this business. You'd be, think about the average income in northern Indiana is about, it's less than 50 grand. I think it's like 48 and some change. All of you would exceed that by doing about half of what you're putting on. It's a lot less work. Helping people get to maybe even their forever. Maybe becoming a first-time home buyer, you get to be a part of that journey. Maybe you're helping them get out of a tough spot. We had a situation, Brittany McCowan, when she was in coaching, it's about 3 years ago now. Probably 2 years. This lady was in financial straits, like dire. Car was being repossessed, about to be repossessed, her house was being foreclosed on, she owed credit card debt, she is just HOA dues alone was behind $6,500. We got to a point where, I mean, she was just trying to beat all the collectors. So we went in, it's like, all right, if we're gonna do this, this is the market to try. So we came up with this ridiculous number that she had to sell to pay off all these collectors. And we got the offer and somehow to praise, I still to this day don't know how to praise, but we're thankful. That lady walked out, all her debts paid off with almost a $5,000 check. We helped her essentially reset her entire life. It can be that impactful on somebody. I mean, think about all that weight she was carrying around, all those people chasing her for money. She went back to owing nobody. And have $5,000 in the bank. So, I mean, we can make an impact on people's lives. We ask the right questions, and we ask, how can we best serve you? This is why being the first in the door, we can have these powerful conversations where they feel very connected. And if we're not first in the door, just like we shared the story at the very beginning of today's session, don't be afraid to offer to be the backup agent. Hey, for some reason it's not working out, you can't get hold of that other agent, don't be afraid to call them. Now be wary, careful if they're under contract with that person's fire agency agreement or anything like that. But don't be afraid to offer to be a backup if you aren't the first in the door. It may not be an opportunity lost. Right, so lead generation model. So this is in your guide on page 5.5. This is straight out of the MREA book. I always like to point out, right, when it gets down to the very bottom, what does it do? Loops right back around the confidence. This is because we're never done talking to our clients. So many agents in this business get their paycheck and they just run for the hills and they never talk to their clients again. At some point, they're gonna have a referral. They're gonna wanna buy and sell again, whatever it is. You don't stay in contact with your database. That's money lost. This is some of the easiest business you'll get. But it takes you actually having a system around it. And you can automate a lot of it. Again, think about smart plans. Well, email them automatically, do a newsletter that gets sent out automatically at least once a month. Do holiday cards, do home anniversary cards, find out your client's birthday, send them a nice birthday note. All this kind of stuff. Don't be afraid to friend them on Facebook or have them follow you on social media. You see something happens in their life that's good, bad, and whatever, send them a card. Stay involved in their lives as much as you can. Not in a creepy way, but being connected to your clients. They should almost be like friends of yours. And if they are, they're not going to leave your sphere for anything. Perfect example of this, a few months ago, I was doing an open house at one of my listings, and I was talking to this client and just talking to him, and as soon as we start talking, like, hey, just so you know, so-and-so is already there. They felt that passionate, like before I even started talking to them, they made sure that I knew they were connected to the Savior. Fantastic. You want your clients to be that hardcore about you. If you do, you're building clients for life. But at the very top, we should always be putting new leads into the funnel. Remember, leads, we've not talked to them yet. Contacts, we've had a two-way conversation. And then we get down to step 3, which is cultivate. This could be 3 days after you talk to them for the first time, could be 5 years later, it doesn't matter. There's no such thing as a bad lead. Michael Vandergrift's a perfect example is he has about 18,000 people in his database. Sends them, even if he's never talked to them, they get a monthly email. And I thought this was pretty slick. They want to be unsubscribed from his list. He just guides them to where they can go unsubscribe themselves. It's like, hey, no problem. If you go to the bottom of the email, there's an unsubscribe link. He puts the burden on them. He's like, hardly anybody ever does it. So now he's converted some clients that asked to be unsubscribed. He told them where to go find the unsubscribe link. And they never did it. And then they turned into clients down the road. So that's great. I mean, he's offering them, this is how you do it. He's not saying, I'm not taking you out. So he's not breaking any laws. But he has a very systematic approach to talking to his database all the time. And that's what you guys need to have. When you have that two-way conversation, when they go from leads to contacts, having a really, really good conversation. In-depth conversation. It might be 2 or 3 conversations in before you really understand, because again, depending on when you talk to them. But you should understand what their goals are, what their timelines are, how they're paying for it, things like this. Prospecting and marketing, do you guys remember the difference between the two?
Yeah, well, one-on-one and mass.
Yep. Prospecting, that's you're talking to people individually. Marketing, you're putting the word out there, then it's on them to come into your sphere. And this is important that you're doing both. Marketing, it's money intensive, so think about buying billboards, sending out postcards, doing events, whatever it happens to be. It's a little bit more passive because you're putting the burden on the client to connect with you. And it's more long-term results. Again, this is more branding based. Prospecting is more time intensive because again, you can only talk to one person the next. If you have 20 conversations a day, that's a lot. But it's putting you in a more proactive approach. Again, this is where you're putting yourself in a position that you can ask directly for the appointment. And then immediate results, because you can be bold enough to ask them to sit down and do the appointment right away. You're getting more immediate results. Database, this is your container. But a smart database allows you to have a plan and meaningful communication from database. So again, this is where in command, you can do smart plans. It can even text automatically for you. But a database is only as good as if you actually use it. So if you're gonna put a bunch of people in your database and only call 10 of them, then don't put the other ones in there. Everybody in your database, you should be willing to reach out to. Other than that, it's just clutter and get it out of your way. So if it's somebody you're never gonna call for real estate business, just keep them out of your database. Keep a very clean, organized database. If it gets super cluttered, what's benefit is it doing for you? Relationship management. So leads, I like how they word this. People who earn the right to have a one-way conversation. So they've registered on your website. They signed up at the open house, whatever happens to be. The contacts, people you've held a two-way conversation with and whom you've established a value-based relationship. So they sign up on your website, now you call them, hey, saw that you registered on the 123 Main Street. Just reaching out, see any questions you have, or if you'd like to set up a time so you can see the beautiful home in person. And that leads into a whole conversation where you can show value. Talk about pre-approval. Oh, you don't have a lender yet? I got 3 great lenders I'd be willing to send your way. Is that okay? Can I set you up on a safe search? Well, this one may not be a great house for you, but I know some others in this area. Could I, send those your way? Now you're providing value. You're not just saying, hey, can I sell you this house? That's not right. You're trying to get to the core of what's the issue they're trying to solve. They need more space. They want to buy their first home, whatever it happens to be. You reach out to them one time a year, they're not going to agree. I'd say at minimum, they should be hearing from you once a month. Past clients, you can make a case maybe once a quarter. And think about this, the types of communication. Phone, email, text. Then you got face-to-face, handwritten cards. Again, handwritten cards can go a long way. But there's KW back. That can be saved results, search results, things like that. If you have not used the KW app, and this is the one with the white KW logo, that's the consumer facing app. If you've not downloaded it and played around with it, have somebody download it, share it with them, and work through these things with them and understand how it works. How does the communication? There's guides built into that app as well that helps them guide them through the process.
Just a quick question. So obviously you probably have a really big database because you've been doing this, for a long time. How do you touch all of your database and lead generate? Like, I feel like that would be so time consuming to do it once a month.
It is, but that's where my goal is. I break everything into 3. In this case, we'll look at it as 4 buckets. A is active, 90 days or sooner, they're gonna buy or sell. The B bucket, these are the people we're gonna watch. These are 3 months to a year. 12 months or longer, we're gonna call it nurture. Fourth bucket's gonna be past clients. So if we look at the active people, these are the ones I reserved for my pick up the phone. Saved results. Hey, did you see this house? Could be a great fit. How are you guys doing? Any houses catch your eye this week? Those are the people I'm gonna spend the most time. Those are the most recent, the most current potential paychecks, right? The B bucket, these are the ones we're watching. And this is why I brought this back up. So as they become a contact and you have a two-way conversation with them, you should be creating an opportunity right then. You don't have to connect it to DocuSign yet, but create the opportunity. The closer they get from the watch phase to the active phase, the more I'm gonna reach out to them like actual pick up the phone and reach out to them. Let's say that I'm talking to you, Teresa, and you're like, hey, we're a year out. In our conversation, I qualified that it's truly a year out. I want to set you up on more automated touches, maybe weekly saved search results. I don't need to send you every day and every time they come live, but maybe a once a week summary of what's been going on. And I'll tell you I'm going to do it. Like, hey, Teresa, just so you know, I'm going to set you up on a once a week save search. So you got a feel for the market, what's out there, how quick they're selling, what they're selling for. So when the time comes in a year, that you got a good feel for the market. Then as you work your way up through that 12-month window, you get closer to going into 3 months. I'm going to change that search result to more instantaneous. As soon as the house hits, you're going to get the results right away. And then on top of that, I'm going to be reaching out to you more and more. I'm going to be reaching out to you in the fashion of, hey, anything catch your eye this week? Anything you want to go see? Hey, I saw this. It's going to be a great open house. You know, do you want to join me and go see that open house? I'll get more systematic. And then a year out will be purely automated. This is where Twilio and things like this could be handy because they'll text them, they'll email them and everything. That way I'm protecting my time for these active clients, but other ones, we're not foregoing them. We're just waiting and having a more automated approach to the communication.
Is there a way in Command that you can put in like what a client's looking for and then it automatically sends them homes and?
Correct. Yeah, there's a save search option. So if you go in the contact card on the far right side, you'll see where it says save search. Highly recommend, and we won't get into it today. If you guys need help on that, we can set up a quick Zoom session, but it's pretty self-explanatory once you get in there. But mess around with it. Put yourself in, do your personal email, so set yourself up as a client and make the most broad generic search. So you see what the clients see when they send the results. And then inside that bucket 4, again, these are past clients. So how often are they going to hear from you? Maybe you do a quarterly phone call, you do a holiday card, and home anniversary card, and maybe a birthday text. So they're right there 6 or 7 times a year they're hearing from you. Maybe you add in a monthly newsletter. Well, now there's 19 times a year they're hearing from you. And you didn't have to really lift a finger besides those phone calls. Because everything else can be automated. So to your point, where do you find the time? You gotta figure out how often are you gonna reach out to these people in the different phases. But one thing I promise you that active, the 90 days or sooner bucket, and you can make a case for 120 days on that. Because sometimes it's hard to find out. Those are the people you gotta reserve the most time for. We're actually picking up the phone, calling, texting. And then the rest, if you can automate it, it saves you a lot of time. So you're talking hundreds of people a week maybe. And you go and pick up the phone maybe 20 times this week. Hundreds of people per. Of course. So if we get a client referral loop going, your database will generate leads in the form of new, repeat, or referral business. So new, remember at the very top, we're prospecting and marketing. So new leads are falling in your pipeline. Repeat business, because we did a great job staying in touch with that 4th bucket, the past clients. When that 5, 7, 10-year mark hits, they're ready to sell and buy again. And then referral business. At least once a year, every past client, you should be hitting up. Hey, do you know of anybody else that can help buy, sell, and invest in real estate? And you can make a case that maybe saying to past clients, everybody you've ever done business with. Or in your database. You talk to somebody like Aaron Hoover, James Reese, or Scott Hustler. They've been in the business, almost 20+ years, all of them. How many of them do you think just their phone just rings throughout the week? Hey, come sell my house. Hey, can you help my niece go buy a house? They could probably substantiate their entire business just on that. Not saying they're not out lead generating, but they've been in the business and done such a great job with their clients. I can guarantee you they get a few dozen, maybe a couple dozen deals a year just from that. Lead generation never ends. Again, this is the one thing you can't leverage out. Everything else you can over time leverage out. Hire somebody to manage your social media. Hire a transaction. And it's best when it's time blocked. We've talked about that a couple times today. And determines the size of your business. So if you look at that sphere of influence exercise we did a few minutes ago, all of you have, 6 figures worth of income just sitting in your phone. Not saying one phone call will convert them, but if you have a systematic approach of reaching out to them, you're going to get somewhere. Now, let me ask you this. So you're going through this exercise of sphere of influence. You put everybody from your phone into your database. You've not talked to this person for 4 years. Should we call them first call, ask for business?
Have you talked to them for 4 years?
Not talked to them in 4 years.
You haven't.
Never face to face. You haven't texted them, haven't called them. You're going to do the sphere of influence and actually do it well.
You don't ask for this the first time.
Rebuild the relationship. We've all had these people from like high school or whatever, they start selling essential oils or candy, candles or Mary Kay or whatever. They're like reach out to every single person and like, hey, I haven't talked to you forever, but hey, bye. Hey, here's my link to go buy it. Do you ever do it? Maybe you might feel nice one day, but rebuild that relationship. Hey, it's been a long time since we've talked. How are things going? Then over time, what you do, and then there'll be a chance of asking for business time. But you got to rebuild that relationship first. But if you just ask for business out of the gate, the only reason they're reaching out to me is they want a paycheck. That's not a relationship based. Right? That's just, hey, I need some money. You're a way to get that money. So let's go. So that's why we're saying some of these people, before they even get to closing, might be 3, 4, 5 years down the road. It could be from the very top to here, 5 days. So back to your sphere of influence again, don't overthink it. But here's 15, and you could really go way, way more than this. This could be tags in command. This could be however you decide to do it. Tags are going to be the greatest way to do this. So because in a couple clicks, you can segment your database based on this. And this should be in your guide somewhere. Yep. So we're not going to take the time to do this, but it's asking you the people you know. So if you do the exercise of doing a mass import into command, then take it a step further, start categorizing these people. So the way I would recommend doing it, if you're going to do the mass import from your phone into command, then set up a time to start working through page by page by page. And then as you're reaching out to them, you're adding notes, adding follow-ups, and then adding the appropriate tags based on these kind of categories.
When I'm on command and I want to send a text message through command, can I do it on my laptop as well? Or on the phone?
With Twilio, you can.
Okay.
But if you want it to be your phone number, you'd have to do it all with command.
Okay.
So the command app will let you call from your phone number and text. If you're doing it on the website, then it's got to be attached to Twilio. Now on the Mac, I mean, you got the messaging app, so you could copy and paste their number. So you could do it, but it won't let you like click on the phone and bring it in.
Okay.
But organizing your database is vital. And then take the tagging in such a step further on top of the opportunity. So you're talking to somebody and they want to do whatever. So they're active the next 90 days. Don't be afraid to tag them for that as well. So you know, again, a couple clicks. And building your sphere of influence day by day. We used to have them out here. I don't know where they all went to, but the DTD2. So this is where everybody's gonna hear from you, phone call or text message wise, at least 4 times a year. So I'll email to everybody. I think Stacy, you're already using that system, right? So basically it's this week, you're gonna focus on people's last names that end or start with these 2 letters. The next week and the next week and the next week. So over the course of a year, you're gonna repeat that 4 times. Very good system. It works. Creates a system around talking to people.
It's call and text, right? For those that
Call
like
and
call
text.
to this number and.
Correct.
text This
Yep.
one's name.
Correct.
Like search.
And I would say base it on your relationship with the person. If you never call. I feel like. If it's gonna be truly like you, it should mimic how you guys have always communicated. Because some of these people you're gonna put in the DTD2 are gonna be sphere of influence. I would use that DTD2 system with everybody in your database. That's again, another tag you can put in there, what part of DTD2 are they gonna be? So it's like A and Z, and then, so it'll give you the list, so you could tag them. And then again, in a couple clicks by filters, you could have, here's exactly who I'm supposed to be. So we talked earlier about the fears and myths. That brings us to this goal. Change the way to look at things, and the things you look at will change. So earlier is, God, don't know what to say, I might make mistakes, it's a waste of time, I don't have time. You know, I don't like doing lead generation. Well, if you come in there with that mentality, it's not gonna go well. You have to get excited about making the calls. The one thing that I've seen work time and time again is, I call it the call sandwich, so kind of call a person or 2 that you're excited to talk to for the day, to start your calls. Could be a family member, a best friend, whatever it happens to be. Then finish with the calls that you're excited to make. So prioritize. Maybe start with the tough calls. Or maybe you want to start with a call or 2 that's going to go really well. And then get to the tough calls and finish the call. Figure out how like mentality wise works for you. But don't be afraid to have conversations that you're excited for, whether they're business or not. And create kind of end caps to your calls. Calls you're excited to make that are going to go well, make you feel good, and finish. Because that'll just make you excited. This is why when we start Ignite every week, we start with, hey, what's going good, what's going bad, kind of get you guys talking, coming right off the tail end of script and role play. Just makes for a much more interactive session. Same thing here, gets you talking, kind of shakes the rust off, puts you in a good mood because it's a good conversation.
What do you consider a tough phone call? Like,
You don't know any of the people, so that you don't know how those calls are going to go.
so like a true cold call is.
Right, so they responded to an ad. You know, like, so I was just doing a session with Meng this morning. He had 33 people register on this app for his openings, which is really good return. But he's got 33 people he's got to call multiple times this week that he has no idea. Are they going to be friendly? Are they not going to be friendly? Whatever happens to be.
That was an open house ad you ran.
Mhm.
You got 32 people to sign up for that.
That Berry Street one.
For the one that,
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it was a location, again, downtown under $300,000. That's gonna get a lot of
So
people.
I could probably do the same thing for Sarah's at 22 Will, if she lets me run the ad, I could probably do something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And even if you only get 5, that's still 5 new people.
That's good.
You know,
yeah.
but he spent $50 in 5 days. He got
Okay.
33 people.
That's good.
But those are the ones that call tough because you might call people and they might tell you where you can stick it. you know, or scream at you. Again, that's few and far between. But to me, those are tough calls to have, because you just don't know where the conversation is gonna go. So expanding your sphere of influence. Go out and do stuff you find fun. You just meet new people. That's simple. I play in golf leagues, I'm in a bowling league, like just the course of those two things. I meet new people all the time. If you like to volunteer, I know some of our agents go volunteer all the time for Habitat for Humanity. Or they'll volunteer for whatever, and they get back to the community, they get super involved in the church, meet people. Whatever it is, have fun doing it. Lead generation doesn't have to be boring and unexciting. It can be stuff you already enjoy doing and then just meet people. Then there's so many just what we'll call acquaintances in your phone. Don't be afraid to build those into stronger relationships. Nothing else, just having more people you can lean on and talk to is a great thing to have. And if it leads to business, even better. But you got kids, you got sports, how many just parents are on those teams?
Let's say you was picking up a kid from school, right? You never really talk to other parents, or you do it sometimes. What would you say? Because like I said, you don't want to walk up and ask for business, just like that 4-year friend you haven't talked to.
Right.
What would you be? What would you
Build a
do?
relationship. What do you think, like, how's the school year going for your kid or whatever? You know, just start a conversation,
Okay.
build a relationship and then ask for the business. So just like you said, just like that person you haven't talked to in 4 years, you gotta rebuild that relationship. This one, you're just starting from scratch because there is no relationship.
Okay.
People like talking about real estate. We're not talking about life insurance. We're not talking about health insurance. You know, this is something people are excited to talk about. Tell us what are your thoughts on the market? This ties all the way back into knowing your market, right? If you think back a couple sessions ago. Know your market. So if they ask you a question, you're just like, probably all right, I guess. Like, is that showing you as a reliable source now?
Not an expert.
Absolutely.
Right. So you're talking to them, they're talking market's gonna crash. No, just kind of what we're seeing is not really showing that, and this is why. Interesting. Now they feel like they can lean on you, get an honest answer.
Okay.
Then you join groups, I'll connect you with people with similar interests and values. It doesn't have to be hard. If you like to volunteer, go volunteer in the community. One of our agents, the Fort Wayne Social Club or whatever, that has like kickball and dodgeball, I mean, they got all sorts. Loves playing sports. Loves going out and drinking after playing sports, and they all like doing the same thing. He's met so many people that way. And he just has fun, you know, so he found something he enjoys doing, and join that group. And then referrals, we gotta be bold enough to ask for referrals. Again, go back a few slides. How much money is just sitting in referrals? I think one of you said there's 25 potential referrals in your database. Well, you multiply that by 6,500. Right there's a sizable income just by asking for referrals. Think about people on your phone. When you think about these people, do you think about their job first? Or do you think about, hey, I know this person from, we used to work together, or we went to school together? Those are the things you think about first, right? Not their job. This is where we always say, it's up to you to remind them that you're a real estate agent. Do not be a secret agent. Don't rely on them just to remember that you're in real estate. Because they may hear a friend talking about buying and selling, and they just don't put the pieces together. Not because they don't trust you. So in some way, it's your responsibility to remind them what you do. Does that make sense? Here's a couple scripts. There's another one that's not. There's another one that we call the contest script, so it's kind of a variation of that first one. We're running a contest here at the office, whether we are or not. people, again, in your sphere want to see you succeed. So we've seen people use that script. Basically just adding that language in there, hey, we're running a contest at the office, and then you can go to that script. That worked really well. Don't forget to reward people for reminding and remembering that you're in real estate and seeing your referrals. What I like to do is I'll send out like maybe a $5 Starbucks gift card. Hey, thanks so much for thinking of me. Looking forward to helping this client. But this is where getting to know your clients at a deeper level as well. Because maybe they don't like Starbucks and they like something else. You can put them a gift card that kind of appeals to them. Now, when it does close, I'll send them something bigger.
And now, I think we talked about this, it's illegal to financially compensate anyone for giving you a referral, right?
Thank you gifts you can send out. You can't,
Like, I'll give anyone like $500 if you send me, or,
that way
That one's
illegal.
because it used to be legal though, right?
They did, but then I don't know why they made it. I'm sure something shady happened that people are like, we got it. But saying thank you, that's. So Aaron used to have Cutco knives. He had the entire set. So for every referral you sent, you get a Cutco knife. Like if it closed, you got a Cutco knife.
Awesome.
They're very, very expensive knives. So he'd buy the whole set and have his logo and all his information on the blade.
That's
So-
really good idea.
So we got a Cutco rep if you want, but
He's good.
No, we don't.
Call him.
Rep for,
Call him.
I've
I
not
bought
met the new
it.
one.
This one here.
how much are they?
Alright, so
What
the
kind?
deal that he had going at that point in time, I think it was like 6 knives and you got 7 for free for like $7.
Wow, they are
But-
really expensive.
But like at the same time, I'm thinking to
Lifetime
myself,
warranty.
well,
I get
if
if someone
I
gives you, you make thousands of
Yeah,
dollars
if I
off
have
of them,
one
sending them
closing,
$100 gift.
then it's gonna
It's totally
cover
worth
it,
it,
yeah. And you can put, it's a write-off, because I put my name. So if you get gifts, if you give someone something at closing, if you have your name on it, you can 100% write it off.
If our
If
name's
it doesn't
not on
have your
it,
name
can
on
we write
you
it
can only
off?
Write $25.
No, like my last agent gave me like an Applebee's gift card.
So
This
they-
was-
That's what most people do.
Yeah.
So they don't write that off, like,
I mean,
They,
yeah,
unless,
Technically, they're
unless it's like
not
$25 exactly, they can write it off up to $25. If it has your name on it, you can write off the full thing.
because it becomes marketing.
Yeah.
So you're buying it in mass and marketing. So like Aaron, like again, this is where you gotta have a very organized database, so he has it where his first one was like a butter spread. And he would say like, thanks for spreading the word, you know, kind of chill. But he'd make note like, hey, I sent the butter spreader. The next one would be a bread knife. And then I know I've sent these two, so the third one's gonna be this knife. So over time, she builds a whole set. Does he ever get to sending a block? I thought about
I
that.
feel like he has been a couple, he's only said a couple blocks.
Yeah, so it's, yeah, a bunch of like loose knives, like, yeah, no block.
oh,
I've never thought about that.
I think he's done it a
do
couple.
you send knives?
I do that. So. I bought a bunch, 3 years ago, with Emma. And I canceled it, because my wife at the time was like, what if they end up at a murder scene, and I got your name on it, I'm like, well, wait a minute, outside the box there. So I'm like, cancel.
They just pick
So,
that one.
yeah,
They're gonna kill
right.
someone.
So it's like, got your name in front of her, I'm like,
I don't think it works.
no, but I was just like, yeah, we don't
You
need
were
that, I don't
like,
need a
maybe
person
someone
to
gets on
cancel.
the phone,
Yeah.
and I'm like, sir,
Right.
I'm calling because it appears that you know that.
Right. Do you need to buy a house? Is there a house?
That's my baby.
Do they need to sell the house? So after that, I was like, yeah.
But my main thing too is like, when I did it, I decided I wasn't gonna do it again because I started to realize like, not all my clients were necessarily super interested in that kind of. Like, a lot of my guy clients, a lot of it's like super cool, like, oh yeah, but like, if I were working like, it's like a woman, they weren't as like
Right.
excited.
And this is where you're gonna
So,
know, like, there's a few good woodworking places around, so I did. Forbes. So one side has like a nice message like home, blah, 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 but on the back side, it's basically a ginormous business card, you know, it's got the visibility group logo, my contact information. So they get to pick which side's up.
What's the company that we?
I use a company called Blues, Lews, but they're not here locally, but there's something like that.
He does.
He does, and the only reason I didn't use him is it's not a full-time gig, so I was like, I don't get them till we're getting pretty close to closing. Cause it's like the deal falls apart. You know, if I try, like, I get their name put on it, like, so it's like their name, but on the backside, it's my name, like my stuff. That stuff I feel like people always use, whether it's cutting board or if they host a lot. But again, get to know your clients at a deeper level, you know, so what would appeal to them? You get to know them, you know? I've seen really cool like sketches of houses that you can order, especially if it's like first time home buyer. You can have a cool sketch of the house made and our first home and their name. So there's just a lot of cool things you can do. But these are the things that are gonna make them comfortable. That's something they'll take from house to house to house. You know? Yeah. Lot of great marketing ideas to stay connected with your sphere. Lead gen best practices. I don't know why the first one is not just do it, but so we're gonna just track your lead sources. Why do you think that's super important?
What you're spending your money on working, where you're wasting money.
Yep, exactly. You're gonna spend money, even if you're not spending money, you're still spending time, which is money. Know what's working, what's not. But don't cut things out after necessarily 1 month. Like I always say, give things like a quarter, so 3 months at minimum. Because it may take time for stuff to build up steam. And audit your resources. All right, these bottom three, I'm gonna take out. And I'm gonna double down on these top two. However you want to do it, or I'm gonna take out these bottom three and I'm gonna add in these new three. Yeah, whatever works for you, but don't be afraid to cut bait and run. Diversify your database. What do you think that means?
Like get it from different people and areas that you normally wouldn't.
Don't focus all on one thing. If you only focused on the lakes, for instance, so Stacy's over in the lake area, if you only focused on lake, that's a very seasonal buy and sell. So we're gonna have half the year where there's no business going on. If you only work with investors, if you were in the business 4 years ago, 3 years ago, and the value skyrocketed, the business is gonna dry out because those investors were basically just saving their money, because they're not gonna buy at the peak of the market, they're waiting for things to come down. 6 months ago, when the market kind of shifted, when the interest rates went way high, value started plummeting, houses were sent out their money. We started seeing investors come out of the woodwork. So diversifying your database, you want to have all different types of clients. Investors, first-time home buyers, past clients, luxury clients, maybe links. Maybe you decide to start dabbling in commercial. You want to diversify your business because depending on how business is ebbing and flowing, you really recession-proof your business. During the downtimes, you're going to have investors pool. During the really expensive times like 3 years ago, you're going to have the first-time home buyers, things like this. Luxury home people are going to kind of buy no matter the market. Commercial is going to ebb and flow as well. So depending on what you want to focus on, but you got to definitely diversify the type of clientele you have. Now, I can't say it enough, you gotta be consistent. You can't just one day here, one day there with no plan of action. It's gotta be consistent. Time block your lead generation time. All of your phones have do not disturb rooms on. Use them. Don't answer a call from, if it's a client that's under contract and they call during that hour time block, let's say. Don't answer it, call them back. But if somebody you just calls you back, answer that call. But don't take any incoming calls besides that. So you gotta really protect that. But mindset, get yourself in the right mindset. Again, make some calls you're excited to make, get yourself in a good mood. Practice your scripts. And please know, who you're calling and why you're calling. You take an hour, you spend 50 minutes of it trying to figure out who to call for the day. That's a horrible waste of time. You do your database right again, every conversation you make note of, and you add your follow-ups, so task, follow-up. When you get to your call time, you just go to your task manager, contacts, and that's your call list for the day. These are the people, you open the contact, you're like, here's our past conversations, here's why I'm calling them. 30 seconds, you're prepared. So instead of trying to spend 50 minutes to make 10 minutes worth of calls, you have maybe 5 or 10 minutes of preparation, 50 minutes of calls. It's a much better use of your time, and that's a much more organized. And take action. Conversations have to be bold enough to ask for the appointment. Again, our clients aren't banging on the door to meet us. They're very interested in talking to us. But you gotta be bold enough to ask for the listing appointment, or just on my hair listing, like, you gotta be bold enough to ask for it, like, hey, why wouldn't you sign up with us today? We talked about that with the neighbor that hopefully you're gonna be listing soon. You gotta be bold enough to ask for them. And maintain it. Every conversation you have, make note of it in command. Add the next step. Could be 3 months from now, could be tomorrow, but add the next step. You do these things right, you never wake up in the morning wondering who you're calling, who you're supposed to talk to, or anything. You already know all those things. So you just go to your task manager and it's all right. Build a bunker, that's what we were just talking about. Put on do not disturb. Go to a space where nobody can come interrupt you. Store provisions, have your waters ready to go. I don't think you'll need enough time to be doing this long enough. You need snacks, but if you're gonna be doing like a whole marathon, but why, it seems like we're joking here, but make a couple calls, they don't go well. Now you go out into the break room, get a drink, now you start talking to people, half hour goes by, it's a very easy distraction, so it seems like that's a little extreme, but this is why that's in there, because it's so easy to get distracted. And then sweep for minds, what can be distracting? Do not get on social media. That's a different block of time, your social media management, responding to people. Because if you go on there to reply to a client, what are you gonna start doing? Don't start scrolling, you're gonna start doing everything besides making your calls. Don't enlist support. So if you work at an office and there's other people there, don't be afraid to say, hey, for the next hour, I need to be locked in. You know, if anything pops up, please don't disturb me unless it's like an extreme emergency. We wrap up for today. What are the big ahas?
Got a lot of money sitting in that spirit influence.
Yeah.
What's the word? Systematical approach. I'm not just waking up and winging it.
Yeah.
So I need to do more systematic approaches. You know, I do okay with it, but I can see how sometimes I do wake up and just like, okay, I'm doing this.
Just go, yeah.
Anything else?
I would just agree with him. I think, I have an idea of what I wanna do, and I know how to do it, I just need to organize it, write it down. Like, I'm one of those people, like, I still have like a paper, like, agenda, like the little book, cause I like to see it, and that's a good way for me to organize, so I think I sit down and come up with, yeah, like a system of who I'm gonna talk to and who I'm gonna talk to, and make sure that I get those done. Yeah, plan of action,
Okay.
like every month, like.
Okay. So big walkways from here, if this is not done, everybody in your phone that you want in your database, get them in there. Tag them, organize them, and start calling them. On your schedule, when are you gonna be calling? And get into the command app if you don't have it on your phone, and get into the consumer app and get super comfortable. Because if you have a great conversation with a potential buyer, you should be sending them your consumer app. Setting them up on a safe search, teaching them and educating them how to use that app. If you're having a sit-down meeting with a buyer or seller,
Share it right there when you're on the spot. Have them download it, create their username, password and things like that. Good?
Good.
Well, thank you guys. Anything you guys need, don't hesitate to reach out. But this is the building block for everything we're gonna do for the next 4 sessions. And you saw how much money is sitting in your phone. These are the easy conversations to have. We're not willing to have these easy conversations. The next few steps are not gonna be fun. Because now we're getting the people we don't know.